In terms of introductions, my name's Rajiv. I am a member of the new business team here over at Tax and Accounting UK, looking after CCH. I am part of the team spearheading our CCH Pillar Two solution adoption at the moment. I've got with me my esteemed colleague, Doug Shubrick. Doug is a member of our pre-sales team and so helps to deliver demos, answer potentially more technical questions, and generally contributes hugely to the day-to-day success of our team. Today, I'm just going to basically talk you through briefly to set the scene for what is CCH Integrator, what is what we're calling CCH Pillar Two as part of that CCH Integrator, and how you guys from various firms may use it. Now, I know there is a kind of a collection of people attending this. I can see we've got some people from Walchkler, so welcome. We've got advisory firms, and we've got what we would call a corporate firm. So we've got firms that may use this solution to service clients, and those that may directly use the solution to service their own finance teams as well. So, like I said, I'm just going to briefly set the scene. We have, obviously, the customers on the call will be familiar with CCH Central in its various guises. CCH Integrator is a non-central platform, but it works in a similar way in the sense that we've got various modules that make it up. CCH Integrator is the base platform. So Integrator is a cloud-based corporate tax and compliance platform, I suppose succinctly puts it. But what we're talking about today is the BEPS Pillar Two module there. Obviously a hot topic at the moment with the upcoming deadline, with June for the first filing, and with all the chopping and changing, we're going to hopefully talk you through what we've got to tackle that. And we'll have plenty of time for you to think of your questions. Please do write them in the Q&A box, and we'll get to them all at the end. The only other thing to really say is that we will be following up with everybody anyway. So if you don't manage to think of a question, or if you're like me, you'll think of it as soon as you get off the call. Don't worry about it. We'll follow up with all of you individually anyway. We can deliver personalized demos. We could just have further conversations. And all the things like that. Things like commercials, pricing, that will be on an individual basis. So we'll do that when we follow up with you, I suppose, would be the best thing. So I have got a couple of slides. I haven't got lots of slides, so please don't worry. I'm going to share my screen now before I eventually hand over to Doug in kind of 5-10 minutes or so, who will be delivering the demo itself. But for now, just allow me to share my lovingly put together presentation. We can do that. So hopefully everybody can see that. If not, I can't hear you, so I don't know, but I hope Doug will tell me. Yes, the CCH Integrator BEPS Pillar Two webinar. I wanted to include a couple of slides that for the advisory firms would show you the kind of thing that we can provide you with to potentially help with the sell to the client, or with backing up what you may need to show them, or for corporate firms, what we can provide you with slide-wise, proposal-wise, to sell this internally, if that's needed as well. So like I said before, CCH Integrator is a global corporate tax platform. It's non-jurisdiction specific, as you can see there, which means it can be completely configurable to what you need. Now, that part is slightly less relevant when we're talking about Pillar Two, because it is configured specifically to deal with Pillar Two. We serve many organizations with CCH Integrator across accounting/advisory firms, and a huge amount of other firms in all different sectors, actually. If you've got on the corporate side, if you've got a tax team large enough, you will use a product like Integrator. and with advisory firms, you of course service clients, or you may adopt more of a co-source model with them, where you work with them when you and them both use Integrator to achieve their goals. Now, the reason I was mentioning it's the similarities to Central, because of course, the people attending this webinar will variously use Central's different strands. If it's accounts production, if it's personal tax, whatever it may be. This CCH Integrator runs the separate tax modules shown here. So direct tax, indirect tax, more of your day-to-day stuff, the work paper management, and that says Australian local file. That's one of them, one of the local files that we've got, but there are others as well. The Pillar Two highlighted there is what we're talking about today. The other modules can feed into Pillar Two, but you can just literally use this as a standalone software, effectively. It's completely cloud-based. And configurable to what you need. I'm just going to jump straight into this slide, really, which is capture, calculate, communicate, as you can see. But effectively, what it is so first is what you put into the system, so your system and your non-system data, what happens under the bonnet, the calculations, the manual interventions you need to make on a day-to-day basis, and then what you get out the other end, your outputs, your connections, and that's what's going to enable you to make those filings and stay compliant, basically. This is a bit more of a fleshed out view of that. So you've got your 3 different levels when it comes to Pillar 2. So this is the individual entity level. As you can see here, it's capturing the information, the individual entity workbooks here, and then the top-up tax amount is allocated to the parent. The mid-level with the jurisdiction aggregations. And the top level, with the global level and the group workbook, of course. So depending on what type of organization you're part of, this will, of course, change probably the use case and how you might use this day to day. But yeah, the theory is the same. You've got the top up tax here, QD, MTT, the safe harbors, everything like that with the globe return here. And that's probably thereabouts it, to be honest. I would just hand over to Doug, I would think, to run through the demo. As I said, please do write your questions in the Q&A part of the webinar software, if you can see that. But don't worry if you can't access that for any reason, because we are going to be able to follow up with you afterwards. So please, Doug, if you don't mind starting the demo. I do have a few bits after that I want to touch on. So yeah, if you don't mind cracking on, we can proceed.
Yeah, cool, brilliant. Thanks, Rajiv. Brilliant, and thanks all for attending this webinar on Pillar 2 solution within CCH Integrator. Bear with me a second. I'm just going to share my screen. So that should be with you guys shortly. Brilliant, and you should be able to see that now. So, so what you're looking at now is the landing page for CCH Integrator. You can see it's a web-based solution, so it's a fully cloud-based solution. So what I'm going to do is just talk you through how essentially it works really from the top, and Rajiv did touch on it really. So first of all, it's a case of creating these workbooks for your individual entities. Once you've then created those workbooks for the individual entities, you would import the information. Now you've got a few options when it comes to importing the information. You can import it directly from a CSV file, essentially. You could also, we do have other sort of purposes or other sort of modules within the software that you could also import the information from. You can kind of see them listed out here. So you could potentially import it from those other modules, but probably the most common one for the Pillar 2 side of things would be a CSV file, which would be mapped and put into the various places within the workbook. So you would do that for the individual entities first of all. For example, here we have the shard, and we'll go into these workbooks and we'll have a look at these shortly. Once you've done that for the individual entities, you then create a jurisdictional entity, so an aggregated entity, which is the one that you can essentially see here, which would then join up all of the individual entities that fall under that jurisdiction. And then from there, it would go about making the safe harbor calculations and essentially calculate the top-up tax for that particular jurisdiction. Once you've then done that, you would then create a sort of ultimate parent controlling entity, which is the one that I'm hovering over now. So that would then essentially allow you to combine all of the aggregated entities in the different jurisdictions which and then produce your global return. So this is your landing page, as I started off with. This bar at the top will always stay the same, so you will always be able to access these buttons along the top. The administration area is really where you would set up all of the users and what they're allowed to access. And I'll just touch on that point as well. So you can set it up so that certain users in certain jurisdictions, for example, can only access certain workbooks. Likewise, if you were to have multiple different companies, so for more for kind of aimed at the advisory firms, you could set it up so that, of course, that those firms can access their own workbooks, but nobody else's, essentially. So you've got those options. We'll be looking at the dashboards later, and they're kind of Power BI based dashboards that allow you to run off quick reports aimed at producing and putting in front of people like CFOs and whatnot in the company, just giving them a good high level overview as to where you currently stand with the Pillar 2 side of things. So without further ado, I'm going to go into the Shard workbook here. So to access that, I'm just going to click into it. Hold on, that's a good start. Must have logged me out whilst I was talking there. So we're just going to go into the Pillar 2, the Shard workbook here. Now I'll start off in this workflow and checklists area. So it automatically brings you into this section, and this is really a workflow. Just shows you the sort of current progress that you have on this particular workbook. This is very much a configurable area. So if you do want to add in any extra steps or remove any steps, you can do so. But this is really just to see and just to track where you currently are with regards to this particular workbook and the progress of it. Just going to flick into this complete details on the workbook area, and you can see the left-hand menu's changed now. Now, this area is essentially the setup area of this particular workbook. So it's things like currencies, what you report under, various other tax rates are detailed in this area. This is also where you would come in and load the information. Now, the mapping side of things is usually done during the implementation. So our team will help you in producing your mapping file. And that can be looked at on a yearly basis if needed. If you do need any sort of extra GL codes added into that mapping file, you can do that, absolutely. Now, this area is also where you can see any linked workbooks. So you can see here we've got a linked workbook to that aggregated entity that we looked at on the start. And again, any related workbooks in here will be detailed. Now, within here, you do also have what we say that the sort of history of any sort of events that have happened to do with this workflow. So any sort of changes that have been made by any users will be detailed in this event log. Cool. So just going back into the workbook's kind of start main page area. Just going to select onto the decision tree. And again, this is very much, what would you say, that the settings behind. So this really determines what flows into the calculation for the Pillar 2 side of things. Now, we do also have this OECD models rules reference column. And so you can see it essentially follows the rules in which the OECD have set with regards to this Pillar 2, BEPS Pillar 2 calculation. And you can see the articles that are referenced. So if you do need to look up that particular section of the calculation, you can do so. The key information area as well is really kind of follows on from that in the sense that it's a lot of the settings then determine how the calculations flow through into the calculation schedules in here, which we'll look at a bit later on. In this section, it's things like the tested period and also certain percentages as well. You will also see these white boxes around within CCH Integrator. It just allows for any sort of manual adjustments that you might need to do in certain sections. This is also where you'll find, particularly in this key information area, the group reporting currency and this workbook reporting currency. And if you did need to add in exchange rates between the two, you can do so in this area. Great, so going to move on to the data capture schedules. Now, I've already imported information into this particular workbook. So we'll just have a look at some of the information that I've imported. And what you can do in these sections, you can collapse the rows. So essentially, it just highlights and summarizes the really important lines within the calculations. If you do need more information, you can expand these by selecting onto the plus button on the left-hand side. What you can also do is right click and view a drill down, so you can see exactly where these figures came from. So if I right click and view drill down on that, it will show you exactly where that's come from in the web sheet. What you can also do is, like I said, you can expand all of these different areas, and if you wanted to see where the income was coming from, again, you can expand and see exactly where certain amounts are coming from. So that's profit and loss. The balance sheet is very similar, and it follows, a pretty similar format to what they would be produced in usually. Just moving on to this substance-based income exclusion area, and this is where you get your eligible payroll costs and various other adjustments which come into the Pillar 2 calculation as well. Now you'll see these percentages come through in the aggregated areas, in the aggregated entities, in the workbooks when we look at those as well. So that's really what you would do within your sort of single entity section. So that is, you just check in your profit and loss and balance sheet, just and add any adjustments within the substance-based income exclusion area. And then from there, you would then go into the calculation schedules in the aggregated entity, as that's where it will do the calculations for the jurisdiction. So I'm just going to move on to the aggregated entity now. So just flicking back into the workbooks list, I'm just going to go into this aggregated entity here. Now, again, it's a very similar look to the sort of single entity side of things. It's got its own key information and various other areas. The data capture, you can see the profit and loss will pull in all of the other entities' information as well. And again, you do have the ability to expand and see exactly where that information has come from. So you can see if you do expand it, you can see these workbooks. And so you can get direct links into those workbooks and see where that's come from. So if I select onto that link, it will then bring me through into that workbook and just show me where that has come from. I can then go back into my aggregated workbook here, and it'll just take me back to that area where we were. So you can always flick between the other entities that are involved in the schedules. Just going to collapse these rows. So yeah, you can see it just highlights and just gives you all of the key information once you collapse the rows. Now we're just going to move into the calculation schedules now, and we will start off with the safe harbor testing. Now there's 3 tests for the safe harbor, and that's all done within the software. These templates are kind of pre-configured as well, so all of the necessary adjustments that come through, and of course this legislation is changing all the time, so this will be updated in the background by our team who do the calculations. So the first test is the revenue test, and you can see this one has failed the test. So that's the results of the safe harbor test A, and you can see these in here. And again, you can always expand all of these areas and see where these figures are coming from. Just allows you to clearly. You've then got the safe harbor test B, and again, this one's failed. And then further down the page, you've got the safe harbor test C. So this has failed all 3 tests. So you then move on to the next step, i.e. the revenue thresholds area. And again, it will show you the information that you need to see in order to kind of access the amount of revenues and whether or not it has breached that revenue threshold, which this one has. You can then go into the globally effective tax rate section, and this is where you can see, if I collapse the rows, you can see it will work out the top-up tax due for this jurisdiction. So it will bring in together all of your global income for this jurisdiction, and then it will then calculate how much percentage you've paid before any adjustments. This is also where you can add in any sort of QDMTT adjustments that you might have paid some tax in that jurisdiction, and you can take that off the calculation as well. But you can see here, so at the moment we've only paid 13%. Of course, the minimum rate per local legislation is 15%. So there's a top-up percentage of 2% due in this jurisdiction. You can then move on to the top-up calculation area. And this is then where it will work out the actual amount that is due for this jurisdiction. And if you go further down, yeah, you can see that to be allocated to the individual entity as well. So the actual allocation happens within the individual entity. This is where you can see your QDMTT adjustments that you might have. So they would be populated in this area. On this occasion, on this example, they don't have any QDMTT adjustments in this section. The other information just summarizes and useful reports that might be useful to provide to directors within the business or any other shareholders. And this tax return disclosures area is really where, if you do have to do any local lodgements, which is on the horizon, we haven't been given any sort of what we say APIs or any idea as to what the tax return disclosures would look like, for example, from HMRC. But as and when they do become available, they will be able to be lodged, and it will be within this section, the tax return disclosures area, in which you would then make any local lodgements to the relevant authorities. Once you've then got your top-up tax calculation, you can then go, if we go back into that shard workbook, so I'm just coming into the shard workbook again, you can then see the allocation of the top-up tax. So you just come into this top-up tax allocation area, and this is where you can decide on, so this one I think has got 95% of owned by this particular company. So it's adjusted for that percentage. So it takes out the other 5%, and then you can see that top-up tax has been allocated here. So that is essentially what is owed by this individual entity for the top-up tax. And once you've done that, you would then do your GloBE return, and that's done within the ultimate controlling parent entity within this section here. And you can see it very much looks the same. You just come into this section and you've got the GloBE return that would be available in this area here. Great, so that's really the sort of process that you would go through in doing your Pillar 2 calculation. So hopefully that was clear to you. What I'm going to do is just show you some of the dashboards now. Now I just have to open it up for a slightly different site within CCH Integrator, so just give me a second.
Sorry, Doug, I was just going to say it's worth saying as well, if it wasn't clear before, the way you ask questions to this is, I hope you can all see a box that says Q&A. On the kind of right-hand side, there's a little plus sign. And if you type your question in there, we should be able to see it, all being well. And then we'll address those questions at the end. I know, Emma, from Burgess & Bullock, you've already sent me a question. So I'll follow up with you probably after this is probably the best thing. There's a couple of elements. You were asking effectively for a lodgement only, for a filing only solution, as you have several clients in a situation where they need to just file UK only. Do have some more information on that. It's not something we necessarily can do right now, this moment in time. It is in the pipeline. It is something we should be able to do. But I will follow up with you after this, Emma, to give you some more information on that.
Brilliant. Cheers, Rajiv. So I've just logged into just another version of Integrator with some slightly better data in it, just to see the embedded analytics and the dashboard area. So I've just selected onto the dashboard section here. I'm just going to select onto this button here, the embedded analytics. This is a Power BI based area. And this is something that we are building out as well. So it's a relatively new feature within CCH Integrator. And the first page it brings you into is this rule tracker area. And this is really how the legislation is progressing in certain countries or certain jurisdictions. And you can hover over each line. So I think the darker the line, the more sort of progress and the more finalised the legislation is with regards to the OECD framework in that particular country. So if you hover over it, you can see here the various start dates and the various settings or legislation and the point that they've got up to in that particular jurisdiction. Particularly useful if you've got a lot of different countries and in a lot of different a lot of different entities in a lot of different countries. You do also have this toggle area on the right hand side, which you can flick through and decide on the different region countries or start dates. So yeah, you can flick through this. It's just useful to keep up to date with the relevant rules and how they currently sit within that country. This is updated in the background by our team as well. So yeah, that will be updated accordingly. Moving on to the summary area at the bottom here now. So you're just selecting onto the summary tab. And this is really just the sort of summary area. It just shows you your revenue evaluation, your top-up tax. You can pop these windows out, and it will take you to that relevant place. So I'm just going to pop out this safe harbor tracker. So I'll then bring out and just show you exactly where you currently stand with regards to that safe harbor testing. So you've got the 3 different tests along the top here, and it just shows you, yeah, as I said, where you currently stand in those different jurisdictions. Again, very much you can toggle on the right-hand side and select on different reporting periods if you need to in different regions and countries. Another area, so you can access it via the summary, or you can select onto the revenue evaluation on the tab at the bottom. This just shows you where you currently sit with regards to your revenue in certain jurisdictions and whether or not you do breach that revenue threshold for the BEPS Pillar Two calculations. Again, very much toggle that you can toggle on the right hand side, but yeah, it's kind of aimed at CFOs and financial directors, that you can just put this in front of them and they can kind of get a current standing on where they currently sit with regards to Pillar Two and the various calculations involved in it. Likewise, the last tab I'm going to talk about is the ETR and the top-up tax area, and it's very much a similar thing to the previous tabs. Just gives you more information. You can also right-click on these tabs and show as a table, and it will bring that information out in a table for you. And I think that's pretty much it from me with regards to the demo. So hopefully it was useful for you guys. I think Rajiv's just got a couple more things to talk about with regards to the implementation side of things. So, but yeah, like Rajiv said, if you have got any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. We'll try and get them answered today, but we'll probably have to come back to you on some of those, I imagine. Yeah, that's it. All from me. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Doug. That was really useful. Thank you for doing that. So yes, please, I can see, Elizabeth, thank you very much. You've put one question in the Q&A there. We'll just get to that shortly, but please, if you think of anything at all, do add it in there, as we've got plenty of time now to discuss. But again, as I said before, we will have plenty of time also when we follow up individually, and we can have a look at kind of a case by case as well, and kind of address more specific questions / concerns when we follow up with you. So like Doug was saying, I've just got a couple of bits that are more on the practical side. It's a roadmap, to be honest. As we know, it's not been a linear path to BEPS Pillar Two, shall we say. And some countries seem to be chopping and changing all the time. We are the first to know, basically, when an API comes available or when legislation changes. Everything gets controlled by by the guys in our back end. They keep the software completely updated. They live and breathe tax. Trust me, they really, really do. But I just wanted to show you this roadmap slide that we've got, which would be a useful thing to kind of have in your mind for if potential clients are asking, or some of the internal might be asking. So as you can see here, we've got 25, 26, and 27. You can see when the XML generation is coming in, the DMT, especially the MPT returns, when we expect all these other countries basically to come to fruition, ending with custom embedded analytics insights, which we started already. But that's kind of the be all and end all that we realized that everybody really wants, to be honest. So I'm happy to share that as well. If anyone would like to see it, we're happy to organize further demos if that's going to be useful for anyone at all. But we didn't want to make this too heavy duty, just make it relatively light touch, just so you can see what we are doing in the Pillar Two space, considering it seems to be the most talked about thing at the moment. I'm just going to have a look at the question that Usman sent over. You said that the typical clients are German headquartered groups, and you do the CT returns throughout tax for the UK subs. How would you get the data into the software and then submit to HMRC? Only interested in UK P2 assessment solutions. It's a great question, to be honest. In terms of getting data into the system, what Doug was showing there was an example. The real answer is depends what you can pull out of Alpha Tax. There wouldn't be a direct link, as there doesn't tend to be with tax software, but it depends what you can pull out of Alpha Tax. It's very, very easy to get your CSVs into Integrator. It just depends what you can pull out. Doug, would you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it would just be a case of just adding the information kind of via a CSV file, via a template that would then be imported into CCH Integrator. It would be a relatively simple process, and we'd help you during the implementation to get that in as well. So yeah, it's possible, and yeah, shouldn't be too complex at all.
Brilliant. Another question from Tanviral there. Is there a roadmap for a specific local Pillar 2 standalone product, i.e. submissions of overseas returns notification and UK Pillar 2 returns? Really good question. And I think Usman was touching on that at the end of his as well when he said, I'm really interested in UK Pillar 2 self-assessment return solutions. I think it's a hot topic within a hot topic at the moment, because you don't need the all singing, all dancing globe return. You just need the local submissions. It's something we're actively discussing now, both hopefully to be offered to advisory firms and to corporations. The advisory firms have always got two options as well, whether we work with you or whether we effectively give it to you, give the training, and then you run with it after that. I don't have to directly answer your question, Tambril, I don't have a direct roadmap for that now. I have had, even as recently as this morning, discussions about that compliance only piece. And I will share more information when I've got it, hopefully in the coming week or two. But yeah, not a roadmap right now. It's very much on the agenda and something that we are discussing because we do realise that there is a need for that. Okay, no more questions for now. Like I said, and I've kept saying, this is just to show you what we're doing in the space, really, just to give you an idea. We understand that in the first year, with the June deadline approaching and the changes in the legislation and the way it's been going up and down almost, it seemed a little bit daunting. People don't really know what's happening. That may be the case for year one, but this thing is not going to go away anytime soon. So do just keep us in mind when considering for clients, considering for your own internal use. If you're whoever you are, if you're an advisory firm or if you are a corporate customer, we'd love to come in and deliver a demo to you in person so we can really go through with you, do some scenarios and things like that. But I mean, other than that, I don't want to keep you all on the webinar any longer than we need to be honest. I mean, we've been about 35 minutes, which is a massively long time. But if there are no more questions for now, then I'll just save it for the follow-up. Doug, is there anything that you wanted to add that we haven't gone over yet?
No, to be honest, and just on those specific questions with regards to the local Pillar 2 submissions, that's something that we'll certainly follow up on as well. I had a chat with the developers yesterday, and yeah, I think it is something that they're fully aware of. So if there are any sort of updates on that, we'll certainly come back to you on that. But yeah, that's it from me. So thanks for attending.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for your time. Really appreciate the questions that you guys sent in. Like I said, we'll be following with you and hope to speak to some, if not all of you, very soon indeed. So thank you very much.